Westeros.
And welcome to our Morning Throners podcast. I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Kyle.
And we are your Morning Throners. And welcome back to another episode of your favorite Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We are your Morning Throners, and we got the Iron Captain on deck. Gentlemen, how we doing?
I mean, I hate to start him off negatively, but I feel like this is one that is better if you know who these people are.
No, this one is too many names. There's way too many names.
Let's hear Nelson.
Very few names that matter though, because even I didn't know most of these names. Which it doesn't mean that they won't. The way I take that is it doesn't mean that they won't matter, but it probably means
Kyle.
For Kyle, probably means that a lot of these characters don't matter much.
They weren't on the show, is all I mean.
Yeah, none of these guys were on it. This character, Victarion's not even on the show. Doesn't even exist on the show. So a lot of changes around this neck of the wood.
Yeah, the show you could see the.
Well, I guess he's not going to win the King's Moot then. Thanks,
you could
Nelson.
see that the show
might
was
not happen in the show.
The show was leaking oil. I don't even know if that happened. It was.
That's what I'm saying. We're so different.
Yeah.
Like Ironborn and Dorne stuff basically just non-existent from the show.
I mean, that makes some sense in terms of like TV realm, because like to try and explain these like different people when you've already got this like main story that this is very disconnected from, like, yeah, it doesn't.
We don't have the time.
I can feel that.
Look at us right now. We don't have the time. Not us reading it, but this book.
Yeah,
there's like it. We've talked about that enough. But,
I think this is like a light bulb. I think we've kind of set Kyle up for it, so he probably knows it a little bit already. But I think for a lot of first-time readers, this chapter is like kind of a light bulb moment where like we've had one Aeron chapter already, and we had one Asha chapter, and it's like, okay, we're learning about some stuff with the Ironborn, but we're not really sure that there's going to be like a whole Ironborn storyline. This chapter seems like, okay, we got a lot of shit going on over here. Like we got a whole meeting.
Way too many people
here.
For this to not matter.
Like,
yeah,
this is growing into a thing. It's not like we're getting a little bit extra. Like I feel like after the first two, you can almost just assume you're getting a little bit extra stuff. And the same thing with Dorne, you can assume you're just getting a little bit of extra world flavor, but no, we're gonna have like major plot points happening in both those places, and I think we know enough now for Kyle to know what those are. At least if we start King's Moot and whatever Arion and Ares got going on. So,
would you consider this an election, basically? Like this is kind of like the second election that we will see.
Let's not classify it as that just yet, I guess. So I mean, it's the naming of the new king. I guess what I'm getting at here is I don't want to get into the how it happens just yet, because we didn't really get much out of this, right?
There are a few more hints. There are a few more hints.
I know, and we can get to that.
I just say that because they are mentioning it in this chapter a little bit, like calling out names and whatnot. But then there's obviously like the god will speak. So
exactly, like there's no real set in stone. Is it a democracy? Is it an election? I don't know, Jeff.
And to be honest, I couldn't tell you either way because I don't remember.
That's the other thing about this being not in the show is Jeff's memory is very flaky. So yeah, I guess the short summary is this is all pre-King's Moot. Basically, it seems like all the main candidates are here. I think the coolest part about this chapter is we meet a new character who we've heard a lot about for the first time in the flesh.
Victarion.
Well, Victarion, we've heard about him. I think we maybe saw him. I think we might have even seen Victarion in a Theon chapter. I'm thinking about the Crow's Eye, exactly.
I meant Euron.
Around Euron.
Yeah, I mean, I meant Victarion, but then I thought, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Euron was the big bad coming home here. Yeah. But the one thing I did want to say before we get rolling here is that you kind of mentioned these other groups kind of growing. That's definitely something I've grappled with in reading this. Is it feels like, oh man, everybody important is already dead. But I mean, they keep adding like all these. The world is bigger than it feels. I guess
somebody dies and the new important person takes its shoes.
Yeah, but and I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like so, like a lot of the names we knew had very important roles and power, kind of because of where they were located and stuff. So it felt like those were the main people, like like the Freys, and then maybe talk about Deepwood, like some of these like big important castles we've heard about. But then you hear about a million of these other people that are from like just kind of I don't want to say nowhere, because I'm sure some of them are from somewhere important, but they're just haven't been relevant. So it's as a first time like reader, like I said, I felt like we're running thin on important characters, or like where's this story gonna even go eventually? But now it's kind of filling back out, I guess is what I'm getting into. So
yeah, and I guess why I think this chapter, these types of chapters are interesting for me is because when there's a character who I don't really like, I read their name and I'm like, who the hell is this guy? To me, that doesn't mean like they're not important. That just means they haven't really probably been important yet. But we have books to come, right? So I think that's why it's fun for me to go through and take notes on these chapters, because I get to learn, like, kind of put these guys in my mind a little bit more and actually understand what's going on here, so that when one of them does pop up and wins or whatever, or does something crazy in Dance or Dream of Spring.
How angry do you get when you realize, just hypothetically speaking, 10 years from now, all the books are done, and you linked all these names and not one of them's mentioned again? How pissed are you?
Yeah, we just get chapters with a whole new list of names like this one.
Shit about the Cods.
Yeah, maybe.
The Cods. Yeah, the Cods definitely aren't showing up again. All right, let's jump in. Victarion's, sailing in. He's on Iron Victory.
Yep, that's his shit.
And it's coming into Naga's Cradle, which is a part of Old Wick. Naga's got to be like an old sea monster, right?
Or the god, like a giant.
Yep, an old sea dragon.
My question was, is it actually bones, or is it like rock structures that kind of look like bones? You know what I mean? Like,
to
what
me,
did they
Jeff,
say?
I thought it was structures that were
like,
I mean, maybe it was
fingers
even
coming up that like looked like a rib cage.
Yeah, maybe it was even
like,
naturally formed, but I didn't. That was the way I read it. So let's hear from Nelson.
Well, I was just going to try. I think I thought I had a quote here, but it doesn't look like I do, at least right at the moment. It's at the very beginning of the chapter. I can go look.
I didn't realize it was a dragon. I thought it was some mythical giant, and like I thought it was like what we were saying there, where it was like, just rock spires that they named the rib cage, and rock thing that they named the tail. Not like dragon stone where it looks like
I could see it being the problem is if it actually was a sea creature. I mean, I guess the dragons kind of were gone for a while. Like, we need more sea creatures. Like, where's the cool shit in the sea?
We haven't been out there much.
But we'll let Nelson read up on it.
Well, the quote I have about this place is when Aeron basically, at the end of the first Aeron chapter, when he decides, Aeron's Dampair. I know that's a confusing name because it sounds like a Targaryen name. When I say Aeron, I'm talking about Dampair.
Yeah, I think I just call him Dampair for the most.
I'll try and do that because I know it's easier.
Or if you want to go back to Jeff in like 2020. Probably damn fair. Damn fair.
Yeah, that's definitely what I call it first read.
Damn fair.
But yeah, so when he kind of gets the King's Moot idea, here's the quote: "Go not to Pike, nor to Ten Towers or Harlaw, but to Old Wyke. I say again, seek the hill of Naga and the bones of the Grey King's Hall, for in that holy place, when the moon has drowned and come again, we shall make ourselves a worthy king, a godly king." So,
okay,
seek the hill of Naga and the bones of the Grey King's Hall.
Yeah, so I mean, to me, that sounds like a structure that was built, but I don't know.
And then here, Victarion says, "Of Old Wick and the grassy hill above it, where the ribs of Naga rose over the earth, like trunks of great white trees, as wide around as Drummond's Mass and twice as tall. The bones of the Great King's Hall." Victarion could feel the magic of this place.
Yeah, all right, well, maybe...
So no clear.
Yeah, it's very... unclear.
They call it the bones of the hall, so I think it's more like pillars, right? Like
that's what we were talking about. Yep, I think we're on.
Yeah, all right, cool. So Victarion is kind of with his main guy, first mate Newt. What was Newt's full name else?
Newt the Barber.
Newt the Barber, and they're standing at the prow, looking ahead, and he just kind of remembers a lot of things. But the last time he remembers being here was when Balon got crowned, or at least that's what he thinks about, is Balon getting crowned here.
Yep.
And Newt gives him a little bit of confidence, like, "Hey, you're next big guy. That'll be you."
They're gonna be shouting your name just like that, exactly.
Yeah. He talks a little bit about the men convincing him to leave the Neck. He at first wasn't leaving, right? He was ordered. He's a soldier. I'm going to do that. But that once the King's Moot was said, he's like, all right, I gotta get out of there.
Exactly. So he was sent, right? He's at Moat Cailin, and he when he hears Balon's dead, he's like, "I'm not going back." Why is he not going back?
Because he thought one of the sons was going to take over.
Well, the only son left is Theon. He says Balon had 3 brothers and a daughter that he loved, and that's basically why he argued to stay there. But then when they got the King's Moot thing, they're like, "Oh, basically the line of succession doesn't matter anymore. We're doing whatever the King's Moot is."
Let's go back to the old King's Moot.
Okay,
Exactly.
So you're saying that the reason he decided to leave is just because he had a chance at power.
Well, I think it's interesting. He's honoring the line of succession, right? To me, that's why he didn't even think of. He's like, "I'm not next. It's either Euron or Asha, but it's not me." Right.
Yeah.
So
either way, I'm out.
Yeah. He's like, "Why would I go back?" He's like, "Who cares if Balon's dead? I'm still not next up until it doesn't matter who's next up anymore. We're doing King's Moot now, which clearly goes outside the line of succession. We have drums and other people who are going to be."
He's also sorry for jumping on board of your side of the argument here, but you're right. He's also thinking about, like, he's like, oh, maybe Damphair is hearing my name in the drowned god's voice, and like that's why he's calling the king. Like, so he's starting to read like really far into this. Like, I deserve this, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I am the godly one.
Yeah, he's exactly.
I think what we learned too is that these crew members really like the people that they sail for.
Well, I mean, we've mentioned that before. King of their boat.
Yeah.
Captain
And that gets mentioned here again. But even like, and he's got 9/10 of the Iron Fleet at his back.
He's got all the Iron Fleet.
Well, he's sailing with 9/10 of it right now.
No. He brings in 9 ships, and then he looks past the 9 ships, and he's like, and there's the other 9/10. So the first 9 ships are 1/10. Then then there's 9/10 more.
I didn't read it as that. I thought he just had 9/10 of it.
That's how I read it.
Either way, sure. Doesn't matter. He still shows up with a massive armada.
Well, you think some of it had to get left at Moat Caitlin.
My understanding of Victarion is he's the admiral of the fleet for the Ironborn. Like, that was his job.
He could have left
Balon.
some of them at Moat Caitlin, or at least able to
either.
Like,
it's
handle those
people.
people.
Either way, he's got a shit ton of people at his back, and they. I feel like they're giving him like, yo, you got to go to this thing now, type of like.
Well, and here, so one funny thing that I think is that I learned this chapter is the most popular name for Ironborn apparently is Ralph, because with Victarion at Moat Caitlin, we had Red Ralph Stonehouse, Ralph Kenning, who's the one that gets left in charge. Yep, Ralph the Limper, and then I think when Euron shows up later, he has like 3 or 4 Ralphs. We'll get to it, but.
He said
Ralph
his name was Ralph.
Ralph is a go-to for the Ironborn for sure.
I wonder what the history is there.
I don't know.
It's a Cheech and Chong joke. I think it's a Chong. The cops ask him his name and he pukes. And he said his name is Ralph. So maybe it's because they're all seasick all the time.
Maybe.
You know?
I mean, George probably would definitely know Cheech and Chong. He's a big hippie.
That's
So other cool thing about this part, and this is a definite like reach for you guys won't know it, but when Victarion has to go here, he does say he has to go when he gets the word of the Kingsmoot, he's going back to the Iron Fleet. So I think another hint that he has the whole thing, but the river he has to go to where the Iron Fleet was moored is called the Fever River. This is a river that's also in the book Fever Dream, which is a real life, takes place in the real world, but it's a made up river in that book. But that's a book by George about vampires on the Mississippi River and steamboats, and it's an awesome book. And I'll actually leave it there. It is.
Okay. All right. So
read that book if you're looking for more George and you're waiting for wins. Definitely read Fever Dream. It's so good.
I think you need to preface that with some of George writing that book is a little.
There's a lot of racial
nipple play,
racial words because it takes place before the Civil War.
It's like not English. What's that one? Django Unchained. It's a similar experience.
Did you read it, Kyle?
Erica read it.
The nice characters don't use the bad word, but the bad characters do. Which again, I'm not saying is a good thing. You don't need to use it a million times to get the point across. But yeah, that's true. Good disclaimer by Kyle. But it is a fire book. Okay.
Either way, let's move on. All right. So they look at the other ships that have already arrived, while they're here as well.
Hold on.
And
the named ones in the Iron Fleet that we get are Grief.
I didn't take any of them down.
Grief, Iron Vengeance, Hard Hand, Iron Wind, Grey Ghost, Lord Quellon, Lord Vicon, and Lord Dragon. Lord Dragon sounds like a really stupid boat name.
Some of these have dumb names. Oh yeah. Lord Dagon. It's not even Dragon, dude. It's Dagon.
Oh, I had Dragon. Dagon makes more sense. It's probably a person.
It's still a dumb name for a boat.
Yeah, I agree. One that I thought was cool is Grey Ghost. That is the name of a dragon in Dance of the Dragon times.
It's also the name of our dog up.
Do we know who rides Grey? Do I know who rides Grey Ghost?
I think it's a wild dragon.
Okay.
I don't think anybody.
So I've definitely seen like fan art of it.
Yeah.
It's also 2 of the wolves is what I was trying to say there. Grey
Wind and Ghost.
Is Grey Ghost the one that the girl finds the sheep bones were eaten by?
No, that's Sheep Stealer.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Hence the name. All right. So I didn't take any of the other names of the boats that were around.
That was all of them. Well, that was all in his fleet. But so you're talking about they're riding and seeing the ones that are already here.
I if there's any that you want to bring up, the next one I'm going to is Silence. So
Roger Carlaw, the reader's boat, that's Sea Song. Lord, I think they call him Old Drum. It's the Lord Drum. Lord Dunstan Drum, his is Thunderer. Lord Baylor Black Tides is Night Flyer, which is, I've never read it, but that's Night Flyer is another George R. R. Martin book. And then he also says that he sees Silverfin, which apparently was Swain Botley's, who's Christopher Botley's dad. But Christopher Botley's dad got drowned by Euron because he basically was like, no, you can't, you're not the king, and Euron just drowned him. So we're not sure whose that is. It could be Triss's, but I don't think we've actually heard if Triss like basically got his dad's boat. Like it might, I don't know. So
okay,
You're saying Silverfin?
Silverfin, exactly. And so I think Triss's son number 2, son number 1, his name was Harren Botley. I guess he was with Victarion. He died at Mokalan to a bog devil.
What was the family that Euron drowned all of them? Is this that family? Or didn't he like just show up and kill a bunch of people? Yeah.
Well, I think this is the one. I don't think it was a bunch of people. I think it was just this guy. This guy spoke out against him. He burned.
It was just the head Botley.
When did we find that out? Did we
in the Aaron chapter?
Yeah,
we were there for that, or at least heard about that.
We heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah, basically in that Aaron chapter, he's down drowning somebody. That's where it starts, and then these two good brothers come and take him back really far inland and give him the news. Hey, Balon's dead. Euron's here. He killed Swain Botley, and kind of some people are sucking up to him, and other people are getting the fuck out.
Wait,
of there.
who was drowning the people then?
Euron
the Crow's Eye.
The Crow's Eye.
Okay.
He shows up the day after Balon dies.
Yeah.
And one guy, Swain Botley, speaks out against him, gets drowned, and then pretty much at that point, people either start getting the fuck out of there or siding with Euron. I think is kind of what we heard in that chapter. And Aaron at that point was like, fuck, he can't be king, and has a dilemma, goes down
Kingsmoot.
And then decides we're going to do Kingsmoot.
He gets fucked up on the beach with his buddies. Goes on a huge bender. Yeah.
Except he's just like starving himself, literally eating only seaweed and like laying in cold ass water. And
probably
sleeping in a tent on the beach.
Yeah, these dudes are whack, man. They're wild as shit.
All right, now let's explain Silence to us.
I was going to have one of you guys read the quote.
All right, Kyle, read it.
And then he saw her, a single-masted galley, lean and low, with a dark red hull. Her sails, now furled, were black as a starless sky. Even at anchor, Silence looked both cruel and fast. On her prow was a black iron maiden with one arm outstretched. Her waist was slender, her breast high and proud, her legs long and shapely. A wind-blown mane of black iron hair streamed from her head, and her eyes were mother of pearl, but she had no mouth.
Yep, so I think that's kind of cool. The figurehead has no mouth, and the boat's called Silence.
Well, that's the whole point, right? Like, and everybody on board is deaf or mute or something, right? Like, I feel like we kind of saw that, or we heard about that before.
It was rumored.
Yeah.
It was rumored, and then I think in this chapter, Euron says, "Go ask my crew," and Ash is like, "Oh, asking a crew full of mutes, what good will that do me?" I mean, for yes or no questions, you could definitely get by with a crew full of mutes, right? Just like a little nod or.
I mean, but how do you know if they're telling the truth, right?
Sure, but that doesn't change by them being mute or not. They can lie just daily with a tongue. So
true. Yeah,
cool boat. We have heard of this. We've heard like talk of it, mention of it a few times. So kind of cool to finally see it. And just black, red hull.
Yeah. Well, the first thing Victarion does is sets up a blockade. You're like, no one's getting fucking in or out here, and you put your ship right in between you and Silence because that guy's not leaving.
Yeah, exactly. He basically has two ships, Grief and Iron Vengeance, playing QB spy on Silence, and then the rest of the Iron Fleet just like no one in or out without me knowing. Yeah. Which again, I think insinuates he has more than just 1/10.
No, I thought he had 9/10 with him.
Oh, 9/10. Okay, gotcha. Either way, 9/10 or 10/10. So it's a lot.
I thought all of the other ships that ended up here were the other 1/10, like the other.
Okay, gotcha.
Like, that they were riding
maybe that
up
is
to.
what he was saying.
But it's either here nor there. So he pulls up next to him and he notices all the crew. Right, he's looking at the monsters, and that's what he's like. Oh man, what a bunch of monsters that he's.
On her deck, a motley crew of mutes and mongrels spoke no word as the Iron Victory drew nigh. Men black as tar stared out at him, and others squat and hairy as the apes of Sothoros. Monsters, Victarion thought. And Vic's basically like, get the boat ready. We're going ashore.
Is it kind of weird he's in full armor?
Is he in full armor? Well,
he does. Yeah, he is. He does kind of explain it, Jeff.
He puts a helmet on.
He's been used to this.
He puts the helmet on. Yeah. It's weird because he takes the helmet off right away. But he says it's weird. He's not used to wearing chainmail, and I think that makes sense because if you're on a boat, You're definitely not wearing like chainmail
you're
or
gonna
armor.
drown.
I think Davos even said that during the Blackwater.
Beneath he wore heavy gray chainmail over boiled black leather. I mean, that's pretty much.
Well, he goes on to say why.
Yeah, he was getting arrows shot at him. That
Poison
some
arrows
on him.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "I'll be back. No matter what happens here, I will be back for you, Bogdanos."
Yeah, no matter who wins. If I'm king, my first command is I'm gonna go fuck.
We're
finish
going
those
back for you.
fuckers. And if I'm not, I'm coming back anyway. Like fuck those guys. Yeah. You can tell he has not been enjoying his time at Mokaelin.
He was willing to stay, though, so that says something about him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the biggest surprise then, or mystery, is when he gets off, one last command to Newt is, you take care of those chests there.
Those puppies are important.
Don't fuck that up. And then that's all we hear about them.
Another cool thing about his getup is his helmet is in the shape of a kraken with kraken like
that's pretty cool.
The
that's
arms
pretty
be
like
the fastenings
Davy Jones.
Yeah,
but
and
as a helmet.
I think the helmet would actually look pretty stupid. It would look like a squid sucking
Yeah,
your
I was
brain.
going to say, this could either be cool or dumb.
Which is why I didn't get the helmet done in our art. But the other thing that I do think is cool is he wears black underneath, but then he has a yellow or gold cape. But it's not really a cape. It's like 8, how do they describe it? It's like 8 limbs.
It's like, I don't want to say shredded cape, but it's like ribbons kind of almost, or a cape of ribbons.
Yeah. Fastened the Lord Captain's cloak around his shoulders. It was made of 9 layers of cloth of gold, sewn in the shape of the Kraken of Greyjoy, arms dangling to his boots.
So I guess to your point, Jeff, about the armor thing, like I think it's probably on purpose to portray like kingliness to some degree, right? Yeah, or at least
I just think if it's not the norm here, like it might look a little weird to everybody else. So yeah, watch my chest, boy. And
yeah, I mean, so is that plunder from Mokaelin? Is it plunder before? Like, what's in his chest? Yeah, good question. I mean, he obviously thinks that they're super important, much dependent on the chest. Yep. So, if you want a prediction now, I think it's money, right? Loot. I think it's like, here's what I can bring to the kingdom, and it's like all this riches.
I got money. But he just starts buying.
I mean, he's going to use it as a play essentially here to buy some votes for the king's moot, but. We can get into that later potentially, but that's kind of what I think. That's out of this 2 sentences. That's what I think this chest is.
All right, so he takes his little trip to shore. He meets Damphair there. They do a little greeting, little prayer. Yeah.
What's dead can never die, but rises again. He kneels down, gets water poured on him.
It's a great saying.
It is cool, but he's soaking wet.
Yeah, there's water in his boots. The problem with
being the water people is that you have to like be okay with just soaky socks the rest of the day. Which I know they're probably not wearing socks, but like whatever, they're wearing like leather boots. Like that can't feel great.
Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I feel like what would be worse than 2 soapy wet socks is 1 wet sock, which is what he's getting. Right? If he's taking 1 knee, only 1 boot is actually getting water in it. Right? So he has 1 wet sock the rest of the day. You'd almost want to switch up knees just to get the other one wet to even it out.
I mean, it says here he knelt, so I'm assuming both of his knees were down.
Yeah, maybe if you're being religious.
And it says the bay filled his boots.
You're right. This isn't a football huddle. This is a religious ceremony. 2 knees.
The next line was boots with an S. Bay filled his boots.
He wasn't T-bowing.
Soaked his breeches.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So he's basically, as soon as they're done, they're like, "Where's Euron?" That's the first question. Where's Euron?
Where's our brother?
And he's like, "He's here. He's in the cloth of gold tent, making a ruckus over there."
Yeah, they were partying.
See the hubbub and all that shit. It's him. You knew that. It's pretty much me.
And the thing that Victarion definitely says to himself a bunch of times is like, kinslaying is a no-no. Can't do kinslaying. Like, or else this would be an easy problem. Yeah. Like, I would just take care of him. But like, no, we can't do that. And he says it like 3 or 4 times, which tells you like he is a man, at least that holds by that, right? Man of some principles. I think this whole situation is interesting because it seems very similar to what we had in end of Game of Thrones Clash of Kings. We have 2 brothers, one elder, one younger, who are vying for the throne, Renly Stannis. We have a child who has a say too, right? Asha, where in terms of like Joffrey, right, was Robert's kid, right? Mm-hmm. And it's being handled in a seemingly completely different way. It's not like, I'm the one on the throne, I'm just going to hold it. But
we're just rewriting the same book again.
It's similar for sure.
With a different plot or different outcome.
With you guys were land people. Let's deal with the sea people now.
Exactly.
I was gonna say that's a weird spot to draw a line, right? The kinslaying. Like I'll drown you with my bare hands. I'll beat my wife to death, but I'm killing your brother.
Exactly.
Like it's kind of fucked up.
Yeah. It's like he has a code and he sticks by his code. It's not that his code is good, but he's like a man of a principle. Not that his principle is like the greatest principle. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's a funny line to draw.
Yeah.
Can't kill my brother.
One thing I just want to mention before we keep going on is that Dampier did say that he's with worse company than when he left. So just speaking of the monsters that came back with him, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yep.
So Dampier asked if he was here to do the deal, man. Are you here? Are you throwing your name in the King's Moot?
If that's what the god wants, then yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Who am I to deny God what he needs, right? That's pretty much what
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, that's at least how I felt he feels. Victarion's like, this is mine.
Yeah, I think it kind of fits with what we were just saying about like him being a man of like code. Like he like you know how like Balon was like the old way. I think Victarion's right there. Like he is like we are the old Ironborn. We do. I mean, we've never got this part, but like he seems to be like principled of like this is how we do things. We follow the god. We do this. Like
well, for sure. I mean, especially with like his wife, that whole situation. He also says right here something about like I pledge my word to Balon about like well that was about not killing his brother, but essentially so that's the first point I guess. But at the same time, I think he also like upholds this code to the king and whatever.
Well,
right?
and we
like,
mentioned earlier, like he didn't want to leave Moat Cailin when Balon died.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't until like there seems to be like
it wasn't
an
like
actual...
his first thought wasn't let me go take that chair over.
Right,
Yeah.
and in the parallel to earlier, he's the Renly. He's the younger brother, and that was Renly's first thought. Renly's like, "Fuck the
Renly's
rules.
like, I need
I'm
to
throwing
get out
my
of
name
here."
in. I'm the better candidate than
True.
the other guy." Right, so it's similar in that aspect. Victarion thinks he's a better candidate, but he's just going to sit there anyway and let all hell break loose because that's what the law says. So I think it's kind of interesting in that aspect.
Yeah.
But yeah. So by the time Aeron and Dampier and Victarion are done having their convo, a bunch of people are around. Luckily, we don't actually get any names here. Well, we get a bunch of last names. House Blacktide, House Tawny, House Orkwood, House Stone Tree, House Winch, House Goodbrother, and the Goodbrothers from Oldwick, Greatwick, and Orkmont, House Cod, though all men do despise them.
The Cods.
And then a bunch of humble houses, which is confusing because there is a House Humble, but when he says humble, he means like lesser or like not as great, I guess. House Shepherd, House Weaver, House Netley, House Humble, House Volmark, and House Spar.
So, I thought that was going to take a lot longer than it just did. So thankfully, you just rattled them off. No backstory on any of them?
There's more names later, but there weren't actually any first names in that one.
You're not going to tell us what each of them did now. That doesn't matter, right?
None of them did anything special at that point.
They just patted him on the shoulder and greeted him.
Yeah.
So he gets to like I guess where his place is set up, and he's getting ready to kind of feast a bunch of the ship captains, right?
Yeah, it's shit you got to do when you come home, right? Like he's trying to win some favor for sure.
So the first guy he really talks to is Hotho Harlaw.
I went with Hotho,
and he's like,
so back up. This was all the houses I named were people like that were surrounding him, patting on the back because he just got back from Moat Cailin. Like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while. You're jumping ahead a little bit. He holds a feast. He's like, men, create a tent, hold the big tent up, and he says he's going to feast 50 of the most famous captains. A few men promised their voices straight up before any real convos even happened. That was Farleg the Strong, Alan Sharp, and Humpback Hotho Harlaw. And then this guy had some, not stipulations, but he has some propositions, I guess, from Victarion.
He's like, marry my daughter is pretty much his main one, right?
You want my sport? Take my daughter.
Yeah, exactly.
I have no luck with wives is the main thing, right?
That is his first thought. Was my first one died giving birth to a stillborn child. Second one got sick.
The pox. Yep.
The pox. And the third one, man, I just beat her bloody.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't hear about that till later, but yeah, he gives that story to Asha.
Spoiler. And he also mentions that the Crow's Eye had brought 3 sons. You need an heir, right? The Crow's Eye has already got 3. Like, you need to get rolling on this.
He's checked some boxes, yeah.
You're saying Hotho saying this to Victarion.
Hotho said that to,
trying to convince him why you need to marry my daughter. Yep.
Yeah. And he does give him some, hey, she takes after her mom. She's got good hips.
Well,
She's 12.
Doesn't have a hunchback.
Well, yeah,
I think
12.
is what was implied.
Yes. But yeah, when he says he takes after her mom, Victoria knows that means she's not a humpback. Like, at least that's what he says. It's like, okay, so she's not a humpback.
It's important, man. Don't want to be marrying Quasimodo.
I mean, especially if this dude's that huge too.
It could grow. It could grow in. She might just be a late bloomer.
Right? Hunchback isn't a thing you're born with. I don't know. Is that
I don't know
maybe
if
it
that's
is.
true.
I mean, I don't know that I'd be making that statement, Nelson. I have no idea.
I'm sure there's
Was
something.
Quasimodo born with it? Probably.
Yeah, he was pretty young.
He's the only
He's
hunchback
like
I know.
20s. He's like young 20s.
The only other hunchback quote I know is from Mr. Deeds, Adam Sandler. And
Yeah.
they're like, you're a nurse? You don't remember?
Mr. D.
I
When-
forget that
when you
movie.
were a
I've
kid-
seen it.
Did you have a little hump on your back?
I've seen that movie.
The hump I'm talking about was a damn beach ball.
He like gets rich and then he tries to be a good dude, right? And then like the whole point of that movie.
Nah, he gets gifted. He's like a
Yeah.
long lost uncle. Gives him $40 billion or something.
But he
like
has to like be good or something. Do good
that.
with it.
No,
or-
he's just kind of running around New York being an asshole, and he gets in the
Oh, okay.
tabloids, and then.
I thought he was
It's a
being
great.
good.
I think it's funny.
Yeah, it's
it's a
been a long time.
remake.
You love
Actually,
Adam
I
Sandler.
I do love Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler can do no wrong.
He
in my
has
book.
some great ones, some okay ones.
He's got some. You can't hit a home run every time. Sometimes you got to hit a single.
So this is actually the first time Victorian thinks about his third wife, and he says he's trying to picture this bride that Hotho's talking about, the daughter. He says, yet when he tried to picture her, he only saw the wife he'd killed. He had sobbed each time he struck her, and afterwards carried her down to the rocks to give her to the crabs.
I mean, I'm gonna be buried by crabs. Like, come on, that sounds like an awesome way to go.
Eaten by the crabs? Yeah, not bad.
Hell yeah,
You're dead. Send it back to the
feed them
the
crabs.
land.
Yeah. I always like the idea of like getting, like, they make a thing where you can get like planted with
Tree
a tree.
pod.
But then,
Yeah.
like, if you get planted with like an apple tree, no one's gonna want to eat those apples, right?
There's a funny episode of Modern Family where they
That.
plant a person in the tree, but then nobody wants nobody wants the tree.
Yeah. Well, that's probably what would happen in my tree. All right,
Yeah.
moving on.
All right, next conversation is Baylor Blacktide,
Yep.
who's a little bit more seven kingdomsy now. He's not really an Ironborn.
Well, the best part, yeah, is I mean, he kind of had a Theon thing where he was like taken prisoner, right? Like, but he still kind
Then
of
converted.
took
yeah.
the ways.
Exactly. Yes. So his whole deal is pretty much is he doesn't want war anymore. He's like, my dad got called
end
on.
this shit.
Like, my dad got killed during the rebellion. I guess that's when, like, Balon's first rebellion. I guess that's when he got captured the first time. Was prisoner. I think they say for 8 years, and that's when his dad died. And he's basically like, you're the wives of the Iron Men won Balon's freedom with empty beds, and my father was one of those.
They all gave their husbands, right? To
Yeah.
take, yeah.
And his dad was one of them who died.
Yeah, he's like, bring my dad back. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. And he says the old way is dead, and Victorion's just like, what is dead may never die, but rises again harder and stronger. Like, if you're Baylor Blacktide,
You don't wanna
like,
hear
you'd be
that.
so pissed off with that answer. Yeah. And he's like, in 100 years, once we win this war, people will sing of Baylor the Bold, Balon the Bold.
More like Balon the Widowmaker.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
fuck that guy.
Yeah.
I love that's his response, pretty much. Like, yeah, fuck
And
that
then
guy.
there's lots of mayhem going on around, drinking, song, dance.
Two of the good brothers' sons knocked over a table fighting. Will Humble lost a wager and had to eat his boot. Like, actually, does that?
Nah, you gotta be like,
This is a crazy
Like-
party. This next dude literally loses a finger.
can you like
Literally.
actually eat a boot? Like, can you?
Boil it up. It's
you
leather.
have
I
to-
mean, you can
have
make
to
some.
boil it, right? Like,
You can
can't
definitely
just
make some
eat it
broth
raw.
out of it.
You can't just
like, I
eat
mean,
it raw.
maybe you have to eat your boot broth.
I mean, they're not
Or
even
maybe-
eating leather on alone. Like, they're not even eating the skin on alone when they're eating like the fucking brains and eyeballs and intestines and everything. Like,
You can chew on it. Like, he could chew on his boot, which like, I don't know, drink a beer out of it. Let's move
That's
on.
what I'm saying. That's what I was gonna say. Is maybe you had to
Yeah.
eat some like rice out of it or something,
Yeah.
you know, like, out of the inside of it.
And then there's the finger dance.
little Lenwood Tawny fiddled while Romney Weaver sang the songs "The Bloody Cup" and "Steel Rain" and other reaving songs. And then, yeah, Carl the Maid and Eldred Codd danced the finger dance. And everyone laughed when one of Codd's fingers ended up in Ralph the Limper's cup. And then I think the entrance of Asha is kind of cool. The way like George, sorry, Kyle, did you have something to say there?
No, as I said, we knew another maid, right? That was at the wall, though. Isn't that correct?
I think this is the maid you're thinking of. This guy's appeared in Asha chapters, which is kind of like the next when the Asha entrance is he. Everybody laughed when the finger fell in the cup. Among one of the people laughing, Victorian saw a woman, and the woman whispered in Carl the maid's ear, and then he laughed too. And then he's like, even though he'd hoped she didn't show up, he was happy. Like, I thought the entrance was cool because he's talking about a woman at first, but then you realize it's Asha. And I'm pretty sure I'll check real quick.
I think Carl the maid was with Asha when she arrived at the reader's place.
Could be correct.
In her one chapter. So, yeah. So Asha comes over. She's pretty funny. Like she's bantery. She's kind of Tyrion-ish like that. Like, oh, welcome to my queen's moot, uncle.
She's great. Asha is kind of great.
Yeah, she definitely is. Like, yeah, no, fuck this. This is for me to win. So I think this is kind of Victarion's first, I don't want to say taste of reality, but like just kind of, taste of other people are interested in this, right? Like this is going to be probably a little, I don't know if he admits it to himself here, I guess is the other side of that, but it's the first set of resistance to him getting in the way or getting into the throne.
So he definitely expected at least Euron, but I think you're basically saying he did not expect anybody else.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a bunch more. Yeah.
And even Asha says here, like, yeah, there's other people.
Because that was the way I read this part. Was kind of more of exactly like oh shit, like I didn't know you were here. Is kind of the first thing. Like I didn't see your boat. I didn't see your car out front. He's like I didn't see your boat.
Well, it's interesting. Like it wasn't there. So she parked, basically, I parked around the block.
She rode over.
Yeah.
And walked here because...
She didn't want the cops to see that her car was out front of the party house. They're taking
she also wanted to be able to make a getaway when this dude has them all locked in the bay now. Like, her boat is outside the bay.
Yeah, and when she was... The chapter we had with her when she was with Roderick, they're talking about this guy who basically just showed up to the last King's Moot and seemed to just, like, kill everybody and, like...
Yeah.
and deal with it. So, exactly.
She's got a backup plan.
She doesn't want to... Yeah, she's being cautious here, which I think is cool.
So, they start talking about the North. They got it. Victarion wants to keep it. Asha's like, it's way too big.
Yeah, Victarion seems to think that because Rob's dead, like, we won. And Asha's like, no, that's not how that works. Like, they already named
They've already moved in. Somebody else already moved
Roose
in.
is up next.
Well, I was going to say, that's kind of what I was saying earlier, where it's like, it feels like they did win to me almost, but there are more people, right? That's what I was getting at. The point I had earlier with the important houses have all died. And now there's this like weird power vacuum, but it's not actually there because there's more of these people than I realize.
Well, what have we heard from question for you? What have we heard from this from the other side? We have heard something about this.
Well, Tywin, right? Or not Tywin, but it was the Lannisters we're talking about, Cersei maybe, and it was that his bastard was coming to meet up with him, right? And they were gonna try and take back Mokalan.
Exactly. So like basically, Roose and Ramsay are seemingly going to be attacking Mokalan from top and bottom. It's not mentioned at all, like obviously because Victarion doesn't know that, but like if we actually think about it, it's kind of a bad time for Victarion to need to be leaving. Like you would want him there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This big battle.
This could look bad, right? Poorly for him, and go poorly for him during this King's Moot if the news breaks, right? Of that.
Yeah, that they somehow lost Mokalan.
He did. He was going to shoot down any crow as well.
Yeah, no birds or people get out.
Yep. So they don't dive into Asha's real plan of the North End, that comes later, but she does talk some shit about him losing some battles. Which I think it's really one battle, the Fair Isle.
He mentions Fair Isle.
Yeah. That crawls up his trap. He doesn't like that.
I mean, he does say, like, I was a kid then, and it's actually good to lose a battle when you're a kid, because then you don't lose them when you're a man, right? That's really his point.
You don't lose a war when you're a man. Yep.
So he basically changed the subject, like, yo, are you here to make a claim? Like, are you really here to make a claim for this thing? You're a woman. He's not saying that out loud, but he's thinking it the whole time.
No, he says that, but a woman wants a husband, not a crown. He says that too. You're right.
Well, he does. He also says, like, the everybody here has... Like, we're all grown-ass men. We remember you playing in the sea naked with a doll. Like, no one's going to vote for a girl they remember playing naked as a little kid in the ocean. She's like, I also play with axes.
Hard sell.
Yeah. And I think, well, you need a husband, not a crown. That's what's up. That's what's next in your life.
They also realize that more people have actually come than just the three of them to claim to be king.
Exactly. Yep.
I don't know if you have that list or not. I think it was like 3 or 4 names.
She says Lord Dunstan Drum means to make a claim, and that Tarl the Thrice Drowned, who is like seemingly another Damphair type priest guy, he's the one who crowned Balon last time, which makes sense because last time we learned about Damphair, he used to be like a party boy, right? Until he kind of had like an awakening.
Yeah.
So he wasn't always the main priest. So this guy, Tarl the Thrice Drowned, he's heard to have said that Marin Volmark is the true heir of the Black Line. And what he means by that is Heron the Black, who was like, back when Aegon took over, he was the king of the Iron Islands. So they're saying that the actual king of the Iron Islands from 300 years ago isn't even a Greyjoy. It's this guy, Volmark or whatever. So, and this priest seems to be, he's one, we heard earlier in the chapter, he's the one that crowned Balon. So, I mean.
Yeah, I trust the guy that died 3 times. I do. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Aaron Damphair is definitely the main guy now, but this guy,
he still probably died like 3 times. Let's be real. I don't trust either of these whack dudes, man. That's what I'm trying to say. These guys are nuts.
For sure. He probably sleeps on a tent on the Pebble Beach and eats seaweed too.
Oh, 100%.
And then there's just a quick talk of like succession, like who's actually in line. And I think Ash is like, well,
I think she's about to start spewing some of the plan that she ends up spewing later on, and she's like, "Listen to me."
Yeah, he's like, the king has to be a Kraken, and she's like, "Well, your brother's Kraken, you're a Kraken, sure, but I am a child of him, and I come before you both." Which is pretty much the lady down south. I forget her name. We only read her once here. That's pretty much what she's saying too.
Martell,
Aaron or whatever.
Arion Martell. Yeah. Wait, Aaron. Aries
What's
Oakheart.
the Aries? Aries. That's the word I was.
Arian Martell.
Yeah. Aries is the word I meant to say. The lady with Aries. But anyway, yeah.
Arian, who's the daughter, should be the next up. Yeah.
Yeah, she's making the same point here. So.
Yep.
And then boom.
Oh, quiet. Silence.
Did you notice that, Jeff?
Of course it is.
They say silence when Euron walks in and when he walks out.
Please, come on.
Kind of cool.
I mean, he rides a boat named Silence.
I know, but it's in the quote.
Of course I picked up on that. Only a fool would not pick up on that.
Let's hit the quote. Read it. Do you have it in front of you, Jeff? If not, I can read it. It's just like a one-sentencer. When Euron first walks in, he said, the quote is, "But then a sudden silence fell. The singing died. Little Lenwood Tawny lowered his fiddle. Men turned their heads. Even the clatter of plates and knives was hushed." And then a bunch of new people come in, list the names. You know I love the list of names. We got Pinchface, John Meyer, Torwold, Browntooth, Left Hand Lucas Codd, German Botley, Alan Orkwood, who they call the Orkwood of Orkmont, Stonehand, Quellen Humble, the Red Oarsman, Ralph the Shepherd, Ralph of Lordsport, Carl the Thrall, and then the Crow's Eye, last of all.
Man
but again,
himself,
2 more Ralphs, right? Those are 2 more Ralphs on top of the 3 other Ralphs we heard of earlier.
And another Carl.
Yeah.
5 of the new notes I had to make for names this week were all Ralphs.
Yeah, it's awful.
So we kind of got a cassowaries situation here where like these cods don't seem to have loyalty. Because at first I was like, oh, these people nobody likes or like Victarion, because there's one of them there doing the knife dance or whatever, the finger dance.
Yeah, the cod loses a finger.
But here's another cod here that shows up with this guy. So I mean they're spread out, I guess, kind of what I meant by that. The whatever, the red apples and the green apple, you know what I'm saying?
They're not the only ones though, because the cod was playing the finger dance with a humble.
And here's another humble, is what you're saying?
Here's another humble. And on Asha's side, we have Christopher Botley.
I didn't mean them specifically. It was just more of like, because I meant them because they were pointed out as like bad guys that nobody liked.
Well, that
was why I was looking at them.
Their house words are, "And all men do despise us." So
I didn't know that.
And Asha uses that as a joke later when she gets into this like battle of witticisms. But the next part in this chapter, I think, is one of the coolest quotes ever. It might be an exaggeration, but it's a cool quote.
Coolest
so let's read it.
Ever.
Crow's-Eye,
he said.
"King Crow's-Eye, brother."
Euron smiled. His lips looked very dark in the lamplight, bruised and blue. "We shall have no king, but from the king's moat," the Damphair stood. "No godless man
may sit the sea stone chair, aye."
Euron glanced about the tent.
"As it happens, I have oft sat upon the sea stone chair of late. It raises no objections."
His smiling eye was glittering.
"Who knows more of gods than I? Horse gods and fire gods. Gods made of gold with gemstone eyes. Gods carved of cedar wood. Gods chiseled in the mountains. Gods of empty air. I know them all. I've seen their peoples garland them with flowers and shed the blood of goats and bulls and children in their names. I've heard their prayers in 100 tongues. Cure my withered leg, make the maiden love me, grant me a healthy song, save me, succor me, make me wealthy, protect me from mine enemies, protect me from the darkness, protect me from the crabs inside my belly, from the horse lords, from the slavers, from the sellswords at my door, protect me from the silence. Godless! Why, Aaron, I'm the godliest man to ever raise sail. You serve one goddamn pair, but I have served 10,000. From Ib to Ashai. When men see my sails, they pray.
The priest raised a bony finger. They pray to trees and golden idols and goat-headed abominations, false gods.
Just so. And for that sin I kill them all. I spill their blood upon the sea and sow their screaming women with my seed. Their little gods cannot stop me, so plainly they are false gods. I am more devout than even you, Aaron. Perhaps it should be you who kneels to me for blessing. All right, that's where I had it ending.
Yeah. All right. So, Nels, why? Why is that the coolest conversation ever?
I just think it's pretty badass. Like, it's the first, he shows up. We haven't heard that. We've heard a lot of talk about how mysterious this guy is. He's got a fucking eye patch and like one bright blue eye. I mean, in Game of Thrones, bright blue eye makes you think of white. To me, at least me, makes me think of White Walkers right away. So even his like pretty smiling eye, which is what Victarion calls it, is like
They all call it, yeah.
Yeah, like gleaming, right? So he's like, it's kind of, he's like putting on the charisma.
This
like,
dude's creepy. Yeah. I mean, he's got a lot. Yeah.
And his argument here is like, when I show up, like people know who the fuck I am. I've been all around the fucking world, and when I show up, I hear them pray to all these fucking gods all over.
Kill
the
them
place,
all,
and it doesn't matter. Nobody can stop me. So what does that tell you about gods? It's kind of like what he's saying here is like,
stop praying. Yeah. Well, yeah, I do get that's a pretty good point. But Damphair pissed at that, and he bails. He's like, "Fuck this! I ain't listening to you."
I think this quote's also interesting because later, when
I gotta go drink some salt water. I got better shit to do.
Well, he kind of just one ups it. And he's like, "Okay," like Euron drops the mic, and Damphair just walks out.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Euron better not hope that the drowned god has the majority vote in this thing.
So I think it's funny because here he's basically saying like, okay, I just kind of proved all these thousands of gods wrong. People are praying when they see my boat. But then when Asha's like, what happened to Balon? He's like, oh, I thought it was the storm god. That's what I heard, is the storm god cast him down. He's like, do I command the winds? When to Damphair, he's claiming
he's the holiest.
Yeah, because he's shown that all these other gods are false gods. But the storm god isn't the same as the drowned god. Those are different. So shouldn't the storm god also be a false god? But here he's like, oh, the storm god kind of gives me my out, right? It's kind of how I see this. Yeah. It's like he's taking into counter argument in the two different places. But
yeah. All right. Well, Euron turns to Victorion and Asha, and they like, hi brother, hi niece. How are you doing? How's your mother doing? She's like, well, she sucks because she's grieving about her dead husband that somebody fucking killed.
Yeah.
Wonder who that was. And that's what you just went on. Like, I didn't make the winds knock him off the bridge, but yada, yada, yada. And we mentioned this too. Like, he has his mute alibis. Like, oh, well, ask my crew where I was. I wasn't there.
So this is interesting, right? So his crew, you're right, is mute. The people on his ship, when Victarion saw them, it was
these guys aren't all mute.
Black skinned people and like people. It basically looks like a bunch of foreigners. It's kind of, Victarion describes it in a more like racist and like brutal, like what the fuck are they, like othery way. But they're just like people from other lands. Right here, these guys are not people from other lands. These are the people who have sided with Euron since he has showed up in the Iron Islands, like the people that are with him now. Yeah, so these guys aren't the mutes.
Oh, these aren't on his boat, dudes.
The talkers are his supporters.
Not yet. No, these guys seemingly haven't been on his boat for the past 12 years. They're
See,
like,
I thought they were. That's my misunderstanding. And okay, these are just dudes that are following him now.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah, probably of opportunity. Like, oh, he's probably gonna win, so let's get on his side early. Yeah.
Or this guy's scary shit. Don't kill me.
Yeah. Or they're just kind of weirdos too.
Well, and Asha kind of gets in some points later why this guy's resume from afar, when you don't know much about him and like haven't actually talked to him, he does kind of have like a mysterious allure to him. But yeah, so this is where Asha starts talking back, right?
Yeah, I mean, they go
Yep.
back and forth for a while. And,
Asha's like, what? I'm going to talk to a crew full of mutes? How's that going to serve me? And he's like, you need a husband. That would serve you well.
Which one of my men want them? They just start kind of like taking claim, right?
Yeah, he's like, Torvald, do you have a wife? He's like, yeah, only one. And left hand Lucas Codd's like, I need a wife.
She had a great comeback for him.
Well, he's a Cod.
Nobody wants a cod.
All women do despise men, the Cods as well, rather. All women do despise the Cods as well.
Because their house words are all men do despise us. And he's like,
Yeah.
all women do too. Right? Nobody wants to fucking be with you
Yeah.
fuckers. Don't worry, though.
You can
have
keep your left hand strong.
you have your famous left hand. Exactly. Who's next? Somebody else is something. He gets pissed off and Euron's like, oh, you wounded our poor Lucas to the quick. And she's like, well, I couldn't wound him to the prick because his prick's too small. I wouldn't be able to throw an axe at it, even though I'm really good with an axe. And someone's like, give her to me, Euron. I'll spank her till she's red as my hair. And
It's the oarsman.
Red oarsman.
Victorians had enough of that.
And she's like, come try it. And this is when she pulls out an axe. Exactly. She's like, this is my husband. Anyone who wants a piece of me can take it up with him. And Victorian slams the hands down.
He shuts that shit down.
No fighting.
Let's get to work.
Yep.
And then you're on left.
Exactly. No bloodshed. And Euron says,
I'm older than you, and I'm your king.
yeah, I'd hope for a warmer welcome from you, brother. I'm older and going to be the king. And Victorian's like, we'll see who's the king. And Euron says, on that we agree. He lifted 2 fingers to the patch that covered his left eye and took his leave. The others followed at his heels like mongrel dogs.
Yeah, I took that more of like a salute, right? Kind of like a
Oh, like that? Okay.
cow, or I don't know. That's how I took it.
You went,
I didn't know how to dig it.
What did you point at your? All right.
I was going to ask you guys what you thought that meant. That makes more
That's
sense
what
to you.
I thought it was like a tip of the hat kind of thing.
That makes more sense than what I was thinking, just like holding it on his cheek.
Did he go Lady Gaga on him?
Basic.
It's not good for a pod with no video, but
Yeah.
So the others followed at his heels like mongrel dogs. Silence lingered behind them till little Lenwood Tawny took up his fiddle. So I don't know anything about fiddles. Is there like fiddle symbolism? The only thing I can think of is wasn't that Greek emperor Nero fiddled while Rome burned or something like that? He just chilling playing his fiddle.
no
while
idea.
Rome burned.
No idea.
Only I can think of. I don't know. If
That's a saying,
here.
Nelson.
But I don't know if it relates at all here. But yet, little Lenny Tallwood stopped fiddling right as Euron walked in, and he's the first one that starts fiddling after.
Lenwood
And
Tawny.
silence.
Little Lenny
I keep saying it
Tallwood.
up. I keep fucking it up. Little Lenwood Tawny. And
Yeah.
they'd say silence in both quotes. Silence lingered behind them, and in the first one, but then a sudden silence fell. So I don't know.
All right,
Again, I think
cool.
it's kind of obvious what that means. It's just cool.
So then Asha pulls him aside. Like, she's like, here's the real plan.
Hey, well,
Yeah.
let's go take a walk. Let's leave the tent for a second.
Well, yeah, pulls him aside, takes him for a walk.
And first, she asks why Euron left so suddenly.
She wasn't in town, so she didn't actually know.
The
She was
first
out
time.
on the stepstones,
I was reaving in the stepstones.
pirating pirates. Just fucking badass.
That's just pirate
Exactly.
wars.
Just Sea of Thieves in it out on the stepstones. So why'd he leave? Like, all I know is when he was here and you had a new wife, and I came back and he was gone and your new wife was dead.
Wood
So-
dead. Kyle?
And I
Fill in
actually
the
don't think they
blank.
get to it right away.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if that's here yet, but I mean, we can talk about it. So I guess she,
Another nugget too was Balon wouldn't speak of the wife
yeah,
after.
Balon refused to tell Asha anything about it. Yep. And she always assumed, again, I don't know if it's here, but we can say it. She always assumed that Euron had just killed Victorian's wife, which I mean, I guess makes sense, right? He killed the wife, and he got the banish for it. But what Victorian says later,
He banged her. Euron banged her.
exactly, yeah,
She came willing and wet.
yep. And he couldn't have that, couldn't kill his
Oh my God.
brother, right? So he killed his wife, sadly, because he seems really disappointed by it.
he hasn't touched another woman since.
Really like that girl. And is this a little like Nelson always brings up the parallel? Is this the Tyrion wife parallel? First wife.
The parallel I had was, I think I do have it. I wanted to know what you guys thought about this. It's at the very end of the chapter, so we're jumping ahead a little bit. Victorian looked at his fist. She gave me horns. I had no choice. What does that mean? She gave me horns.
She made him look a
She
fool.
made him the devil? Or
No, I think she made him look a fool.
I think that's the right answer because the rest of the quote that and what I was going to draw the parallel to is this seems like the most Greyjoy thing ever. This seems like how Theon would react, right? The rest of this quote. Had it been known, men would have laughed at me, as the crow's eye laughed at me when I confronted him. She had come to me wet and willing, he had boasted. It seems Victarion is big everywhere but where it matters. But he could not tell her that, meaning like he's talking to Asha. He can't tell Asha that that Euron basically roasted him. So this is exactly why Theon decides he has to kill Brandon Rickon / like the Brandon Rickon fakes, right? Is because he knows if he doesn't, it'll look bad, right? So like you do horrible things for your image. Like your image matters more than even taking Winterfell. He did that because he needed to look good to his dad, right? So it's like he was trying to look good. You understand for where he's not Victarion as much. Like Theon, you understand where he's coming from the dad thing a little bit, right? Like even though we like Winterfell, we don't want him to do that. Like he's in a super tough spot. His dad is saying like, you suck, you're that on that team, prove it you're not. So I think that quote just reminded me, if it had been known, men would laugh at me as the crow's eye laughed when I confronted him. It's like that just seems to be like the main thing that Theon was thinking about too.
Couldn't have that. Yeah.
So before he gets into that, he changes the subject really quickly. I know we're kind
jumping around a little
back to real time. He's like, yo, so I see the readers here. How the fuck that happen?
Yeah, and she says it took all her charm to convince him. Was that what we saw? Did we see all her charm in her chapter?
Was that everything she had?
I don't remember that chapter, to be honest. I'm sorry.
There was probably like one or two more times she went to see him. She had like just showed up and met with him one time, I'm sure. And he was basically like, nah, I'm not going. I like my history written in ink, not blood. Okay. Is kind of his argument.
So it was successful then. Okay.
That's where we found out like Asha's mom was kind of sick, right? And
exactly.
Yeah. It was one of the more boring. It was
a long time ago at this point.
It was a long time, and it was pretty boring. Yep. And at that point, he realizes she has the Harlaws as support, which are a solid family, right? Like there's a decent amount of them.
Yep.
But she realizes she doesn't have enough support. So
she says, you can't win. You're a woman. And I love this because she's like, oh, is that why I lose all the pissing contests? Why do I love this? Do you guys know?
Because Nelson lost a pissing contest to a woman before.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know.
In the second Dunk and Egg, when Dunk is having that conversation with the Red Widow at the end in the middle of the stream, and he's like, why can't you just let this go? Like, it's just a pissing contest. Like you burning the wood and Sir Eustace. And she's like, yeah. And when you're in a pissing contest and you're a woman, you have to piss twice as hard. So, like, George has used this kind of metaphor already. He's like, oh, is that why I can't win? Because I'm a fucking woman in a pissing contest.
Is that how you win a pissing contest? Is by pissing harder? Or by? I feel like it's a distance thing.
Exactly. So you piss harder.
Farther.
Yeah.
Harder is farther.
Yeah, there's a quake.
Is it? It might start spraying on you, shotgun.
Like if it's like who can piss for the longest time, then you're gonna piss as soft and short as possible and just make it drip out for minutes.
I'm just saying, maybe at some point trying too hard can have a negative effect at some point.
I don't know. The pissing contest woman thing, I think is a cool analogy for some reason. I don't know. That one really hits home to me. So this reminded me of the Red Widow. And Asha and the Red Widow kind of remind. And I just like Dunk and Egg. And I read those books too much, so obviously that kind of stuff pops out.
You find any parallel you can for Dunk and Egg.
I just like Dunk and Egg. All right. She's like, yeah, so I got the Harlaws and I got a few other people. My own men obviously love me. And I got Christopher Botley and a few other people like him but it's not going to be enough. So she's like, I'm thinking of shouting my nuncle's name. I also love that Asha always says nuncle.
Which nuncle are you talking about here?
You have 3. And she's like, I got 4, motherfucker. But you. Basically, I'm talking about you. Like, just make me your hand.
Who's the other one?
Roderick. Nobody counts Roderick because he's on his mother's side.
Okay.
Roderick the Reader?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's his mom's brother.
Only the Krakens.
I forgot.
Exactly. That's what Victarion's saying. That's why he says 3. It's Euron, Victarion, Damphair. And she's like 4. It doesn't matter at all. She just rolls right past it. Like it doesn't. It's not like she's saying I'm going to back Roderick. It's not at all. But.
Yeah.
And so she offers her right. Let's share the role.
Yeah. Make me your hand.
Well, beforehand, she's like,
before that, he's like, yo, is she trying to marry me?
He gets kind of hard.
Is she coming over? gets a little stiff in the breeches.
It's like, dude, it's your knees.
He really was contemplating it though. He was like, okay, I ain't really looked at you like that before, but let me take a look right now.
He's like, do a quick spin for me.
She was like, I wish you could. What if he came on to her and she could be like, "No, you idiot! I want to be your hand. Like I'll stand behind you."
Victarion is kind of dumb.
Yeah, he seems a little dumb.
It's surprising to me, like Asha's just kind of willing to take the back seat, and I think we know that the hand does play a big role, sometimes maybe even more of a role than whoever's actually on the throne. But like, I feel like for her to not be the kind of the pomp and circumstance of actually sitting on the chair would mean a lot to her. But who knows? Maybe she doesn't care.
What does it seem, Kyle, is her main objective here? So she's like, I'll be hand, and then here's what we're going to do.
Well, she wants to finish the war, right?
Finish as in, like, kind of end it and just take what we have and call it quits.
Like, we've got everything we can get.
Take what we have, kind of barter what they have for what they could really use.
Yeah, it's like,
which is
so this is an interesting
can
map.
Handle.
You guys should look at the map. I sent it to you guys in an email. I'll put it in the YouTube video.
All right, I'm there.
Okay, so what Asha says is, so she took Deepwood Mott. So she's been at the Glover house. And she had Sibel Glover, who was Lady Glover, and some of her children were sick, and she was taking care of them in the last Asha chapter. She's basically like, I talked to Lady Glover. I'm pretty sure I can get a meeting with Lord Glover. And from that, we can make this deal. I'm pretty confident that basically we can make sure we'll give back Deepwood Mott. So we'll give back House Glover. We'll give back Mo Kalen and we'll go back Torrance Square. And they'll give us Sea Dragon Point and Stony Shore. And we'll be able to keep that. And she's like, it's really thinly populated and like not great land, but it's 10 times is our current land area as the Iron Islands right now or whatever. So,
and we can't hold the North. Like we're fools to think that we can
hold off this
stay
gathering
here.
force.
Yeah, so just real quick on the map, if you look at this, what's interesting to me is I didn't realize how south. I feel like I've said this multiple times now. I didn't realize how much south the Iron Islands is for the North. Right, Seaguard, which is right there to the right of the Iron Islands, is pretty much parallel with the Twins. So that's where the Iron Islands are. They're not actually like right off the coast of the north.
Why wouldn't they want like Cape Kraken instead of the Stony Shore?
I mean, they probably would, but again, I don't know if that's like really.
I mean, if you have the bargaining power, why would you take the Stony Shore? It looks awful just from the map that you have.
Well, so they're
here.
taking Sea Dragon Point, which is kind of what you said, Jeff. It's like a big arm, but it's the one above the Stony Shore. It's the very top one on the map.
Yeah,
like the wooden one.
That's too far. That's too far.
And if you go inside of that, you can also see Deepwood Mott, right? So there's Deepwood Mott that they're giving back. There's Torrance Square that you're giving maps on this map, and then Mo Kalen's not, but it's right inside that like little river called Salt Spear, like little Blazewater Bay.
I mean,
Salt
the map
Spear.
could be misrepresenting it, Jeff.
You got a problem with my map?
No, I'm just saying that maybe it's not as shitty of land as the map is making it, because the map is supposed to be interesting to look at. Yeah. And so if it was just all the same color because it was all the same land, that wouldn't be interesting to look at, right? So like I think it's kind of.
I'll tell you who would not like this deal is Bear Island, the Mormonts, because it's not on the map, but it's literally like right above Sea Dragon Point. So if you gave like Sea Dragon Point to the Iron Islands, Bear Island would be like become the number one.
Mormonts are left?
There's people there. There's people to be
probably yeah.
Mage Mormont is sent off with Rob's will somewhere, or sent off to go meet Hallen Reed or something. Like she's off on a mission. She's one of the ones we haven't heard of in a while. Yeah, moving on. To your point, Jeff, when Asha's, I think she has this cool metaphor when she's saying like we can't hold the North; it's too big. She's like, a good fisherman can catch a Leviathan, can hook up on a Leviathan.
Well, that's a Game of Thrones.
But if you try and reel that thing in, it's going to take you down with it. You got a smart man will cut it loose. And she's like, the North is too big for us to hold. Like we hooked it.
We've done what we could.
It's teasing us, but like if we don't give up now, we're going to lose more than we get. We're just going to lose it all. Yeah.
He's not feeling it though. He's like, no, I'm taking the North like Balon intended.
Old way. Iron Price.
We're doing this thing.
Yeah, this is ours. Yeah, we had this one. Yeah, this dude's nuts. I don't know that he's that much better than Euron.
Go back to your dolls. Leave the wars to the warriors. And he's like, I got 2 fists. I don't need a third.
He says hands.
I got two hands. Yeah, exactly.
2 hands. I don't need a third. Which is a pretty good line.
It's okay. It's kind of it's simple analogy.
Guys,
no Leviathan. It's no Leviathan dragging it to the deep.
Yeah. So he thinks he can win the hard laws with Hotho and the daughter. He's like, I'm going to split your biggest your ally. I'm going to take him anyway with Hotho. Yeah,
that seems to put her on her back foot a little bit. She didn't see that coming.
Like, oh shit, Hotho's out here making moves on me.
Yep. And he's like, plus anyway, Euron's been gone too long. Like, no one around here knows who he is. Like, he has no chance.
Oh, but they know, and they are all he's talking about at the campfires.
Some men look larger at a distance. Exactly. She's like, I've walked around, I've heard him. They talk about the places he's seen, the women he's raped, the men he's killed.
Well, this is where they're
cities he's
at, right?
sacked.
They're outside at the fires here,
Well, they've
and she's
walked
like
past.
talking about yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. Is like go listen. That's
Yeah.
why we're out here. Essentially, is you'll hear the same things tonight. Yeah, go ahead.
And the last one is in how he burned Tywin Lannister's fleet. And Valyrian's like, whoa, I burned the fleet. I literally threw the first torch onto the top dog Lannister ship. And she's like, yeah, but the men say it's Euron's idea.
Yeah,
He was the one that hatched the scheme.
and you killed your wife, or no? And he killed your wife.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think that she's insinuating this is what all the people are saying. I thought this was just her kind of taking a guess in private at what happened, but I think you're right. This is probably what she's heard throughout the camp, people saying about Victarion. And he says Balon commanded them not to speak of it. But Balon was dead. He put a baby in her belly and made me do the killing. I would have killed him too, but Balon would have no kinslain in his hall. He sent Euron into exile, never to return. And then Asha jumps in, so long as Balon lived. So she like realizes how this is all playing
That's why
together.
he's back, right? Yeah, like he could come back. He seems pretty guilty to some degree here.
It's hard to tell. And then this is when he looks at his fist. She gave me horns. I had no choice. And he beat his wife to death. And Euron had mocked him, basically saying, like, Victarion's big everywhere but where it matters. He doesn't want to tell Asha that. And she's like, I'm sorry for you, uncle. Sorry for your wife. But after this conversation, I'm sorry, you don't get my you did not win my support. I'm throwing my own name in. Back to the drawing board.
Back to playing one, yeah. Best. There went my truce, yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, all right, game on.
All right. Kyle, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of talked through the main foreshadowing.
You want to take any swings at the Kingsmoot?
What's the next chapter?
It's another one.
The
Iron
Drowned
something.
Man.
The Drowned Man. That's
Wonder who that could be.
Probably Damp Hair, if I had to guess.
A lot of the guys have been drowned.
Or maybe it's Tarl.
Tarl the Thrice Drowned. The Thrice Drowned Man.
The rest of this book is actually just all Iron Island Kingsmoot stuff.
I hope so. Yeah, Cersei's dead. Jaime's dead. Everybody's dead. It's just this. Yeah, that's all that's left.
Well, what's interesting is this is chapter 18, and this is the first Victarion chapter. So we're 18 chapters into a book of only 42 chapters, and we're still getting new POVs. So this could have been an Asha chapter. I'm going to argue this could have been an Asha chapter. The main argument is between Asha and a bunch of Euron's men, and Victarion's literally just.
Does it really matter though if we're in the same spot? Does it really matter how many POVs there are?
I think it's kind of more interesting to get this dude's take.
Well, it's always fun to get like different POVs in the same spot back to back, right? Like Blackwater, or
you could always stop a POV without them dying. Like they don't have to be dead for them not to get a POV.
Agreed. Again. Yeah, you don't have to add them permanently.
Like this might be like if this was Victarion's only one, but you still got all of his storyline, no matter how it ends. Like, yeah, would it really matter?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying we're 18 chapters
in,
so get new POVs. Could we get another POV?
Well, let me talk. I always think it would have been cool to get like a random Rob POV.
I know,
like
you wanted to do Rob, and I think George has even said he wished he had a couple Rob POVs in there. I kind of like the fact that we only get Rob through Catelyn.
I think it makes it a little more interesting, but yeah, at the same time, I would have
there's a piece, and that's what I'm saying. Like maybe only one, like maybe only like
prologue.
Yeah, prologue would be good. A prologue as a Rob or something. And you could have pushed that because I think Whispering Wood was very end of Game of Thrones. You could have pushed that and made that the prologue, a Clash of Kings
epilogue
or epilogue. Yeah, there was no epilogue in Game of Thrones. That could have been a cool epilogue Rob POV.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll rest my head on that one.
But cool.
So,
all right.
Kyle?
So.
Until next time.
Nothing more for Kyle. We'll see you on the next one for the Drowned Man. See the rest of you guys in the spoiler section. Thanks for listening. Like, subscribe. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Later, nerds.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Bye, Kyle.
Bye, Kyle. Thanks for hanging out with us.
See you on the next one for the Drowned Man.
Interesting. And it's Aaron.
It's the Kingsmoot.
Is it the whole smoot?
Yep, the whole.
Give me the spoiler. How does it end? Euron wins.
Euron wins. He blows the magic horn and wins.
What did the horn just scares everybody?
It kills the man that blows it immediately. Maybe not immediately. Maybe it's a little bit later that the guy dies. But Victarion learns eventually that the guy basically died and his lungs were charred. I think basically, when he blows it, there's like bronze runes on the side of it that start glowing or something like that. And then Euron says like this horn can tame dragons or like bind dragons to your will.
Interesting.
And the chests are used like basically they're promising what they're gonna get. I forget what everybody's chests contain. I think Asha's contain like pine cones. And she's like, I'm gonna promise you the stony shore and the sea dragon point and this tiny bit of land. And everyone's like, yeah, okay. And then Euron's is like diamonds and
Diamonds
gold
and
bands
dragons
and crazy shit. Yeah,
What's in Victarion's chest?
I forget what's in Victarion's. Nothing crazy.
Doesn't
Somewhere
matter.
in the middle.
So does Asha bail out the back door?
Yeah, she goes back to Deepwood Mott.
And Victarion bails to go east.
No, Victarion does what he's supposed to do. He's becomes Euron's right-hand man.
Interesting. And Euron sends him east.
Eventually, yeah, to go get Dany with the horn. I think before that they attack the Shield Islands, which are islands like kind of on the way to Old Town.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, that'll be cool to kind of wrap this mood up.
Yeah, the other thing is I think I was maybe spoiling a little bit about Naga. Again, there's not much to spoil because we don't know much. A lot of it's all speculation. But even the fact that Naga was a sea dragon, I don't know if that was actually said yet. That might be said next chapter.
It's a fake. I thought it was a fake.
I think it's interesting because there's basically a few speculations. The one that I think is most interesting is this: a bunch of weirwood trees. Because he basically says they're big Drummond's masts that are twice as tall, white stone.
And they were white as them.
And we hear that when weirwood dies, it just like turns to like stone, basically. So
interesting.
And the thought in the fandom is weirwood network, right? All the weirwood trees are connected underground.
Yeah.
And basically, when the children of the forest are like, okay, something bad's happened, the hammer of the waters was something that they used to like crush the Mokalin and the Armadorn, right? Which is why Dorne's not connected to Essos.
You said the arm of Dorne really fast, like
the arm of Dorne.
The arm of Dorne?
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
So like that's the thought. Is like why there are no weirwood trees in Westeros? Because a long time ago, the children of the forest used some crazy magic to disconnect the weirwood network from over there with water. Right? Why might these trees not be connected anymore? Maybe they were. Maybe this was all one big continent, but then some water rose or something happened to the weirwood network underneath, and these trees got disconnected, and now they're just like petrified stone.
Wow,
white stone.
You went Harry Potter on us with petrified
stone.
trees.
So I don't know. There's lots of we don't have answers on a lot of this.
I was
it seems,
all in on it just being rocks that kind of looked like a rib cage. Like there would be a skull, right? Like where's the skull?
That's why I think weirwood trees is the best.
I'm cool with weirwood trees. I'll buy into that just because it makes sense to have a weirwood tree network.
Well, I think Victarion's quote is like he could feel the magic of this place, right?
Okay.
Like when he first shows up,
he did.
The 44 let me hit you with this quote real quick. Victarion joined Newt the Barber at the prow. Ahead loomed the sacred shore of Old Wick and the grassy hill above it, where the ribs of Naga rose from the earth like trunks of great white trees, as wide around as Drummond's mast and twice as tall. So he literally says, like the trunks of great white trees.
Yeah.
The bones of the Grey King's Hall. Victarion could feel the magic of this place. So
I'm not against it. I'm with you. I'm in.
And I'm not even sure if I'm sold on it. I think it's something that George spent like too much time like kind of talking about to not circle back to at least a little bit. Like what this is. We've spent too much time talking about Naga's ribs just to have the Kingsmoot here. I mean, it is a cool spot, but I hope we do get a little bit more of it. Yeah, talking about Naga's ribs was really the only thing I had, and I think I probably talked a little bit too much about it during the non-spoiler. But I guess the rest of what we know is the Grey King was like basically Age of Heroes king who was said to have killed a sea dragon Naga and then built his hall from the bones of Naga. Or he drugged Naga up onto the land and then made his hall around the bones or something. So there's like this like Age of Heroes story that has to do with this, but that's kind of like a Johnny Appleseed, Paul Bunyan type story where we don't actually think that those are true nowadays. I think we've got an argument. Johnny Appleseed is real or something?
You think I don't know. I thought he was a real guy.
I think you might be right. I think we had an argument with this in the past. I think we looked it up and you were right. But yeah, you know what I mean. Like he was like who's a figure, who's like like Pocahontas, somebody who definitely wasn't real.
Pocahontas.
I know. I don't want to. Sometimes I try and joke around and pretend like I'm dumb, and
that was the biggest dot.
And then I can never convince anybody afterwards that I actually knew that beforehand. I know Pocahontas.
Grizzly Adams did have a beard.
I know Pocahontas was a real person. That was a joke.
Oh, gosh.
But yeah, like I can't think of one right now.
All right. Well, let me get to my one point. And it's very subtle and read right over is his lips were blue and bruised.
Oh, that's a good one. I should have written that down. It's a great one. Great call by you.
I know.
Why are they blue and bruised?
Because he drinks the moon tea or
the shade of the evening, the warlock's juice. Because he's been to Karth and he has Pirate Pre on one of his ships right now.
I forgot he had Pirate Pre.
That might be sometimes I drop Winds of Winter spoilers on you and I feel bad.
That's okay.
I need to get you the Winds of Winter chapters.
Did you know that from Winds of Winter?
Yeah, I think it's in
you can't do that to me.
Yeah, I forgot.
If it was something that I should have known, I don't feel bad, but
the problem is I forgot.
You keep talking about like Arya chapters that I haven't like read yet, and I'm like, that's not
Here's what we should do. Me and you should I should find you the Winds of Winter chapters, and me and you should record them separately and put them up as like bonus episodes. It won't be anytime soon, and I might even cut this out of the podcast so people don't expect it.
Yeah.
But we should do it because the closer we get to the ends, the more I'm going to be referencing those by accident, just because at this point I don't know exactly where. You know what I mean? Like the lines are blurred for me. I forget what we learn where. But yeah, now I'm thinking that it probably is Winds of Winter only. Yeah, I'll find the chapters for you.
That's the only, like, other than the chest, which you didn't even know, which is lame of you, which means it must not matter a whole lot. It sounds like Victarion isn't that cool of a King Smooter. He doesn't shoot his shot. The blue lips, the wife intrigues me because I could see, because we know Euron was a diddler, right? Euron diddled the boys, right?
Aeron and his brother Uragon.
Oh, not Victarion?
I don't think Victarion. I think he was too old.
Okay. When do we hear about the creaky hinges? Is that in this next one?
Go to the very last line of the next one. Next chapter.
Are you asking me because you don't know?
No, I'm pretty sure the very last line of the next chapter is Euron's name getting called and then him thinking of creaky hinges.
A rusted iron hinge. Scream of a rusted iron hinge.
Even a priest may doubt, even a prophet may know terror. Aeron Damphair reached within himself for his God and discovered only silence. As 1,000 voices shouted out his brother's name, all he could hear was the scream of a rusted iron hinge.
I do like all the plays of silence with Euron as well.
Cool. Yeah. I think I've even pointed out a few before we even got here. But I think Kyle doesn't even know what I was talking about. But
I think Kyle played it off like he was picking up what we were putting down, but I don't know if he actually was.
Yeah, his gifts are just gold and silver.
Interesting. All right. Anything else you want to hit on?
That was it. I mean, it's a tough one because we're gonna get it back to back. I mean, we could talk more about like what Euron gets up to, but we can talk about that in the next one.
Yeah, we'll be right there.
He is cool with that. I mean, I think there is a lot of symbolism. They call him the crow's eye.
Do you think he has does he have a gem? Why is he wearing an eye patch?
I forget what he had. Again, I don't know if you know what he has underneath of it, and I kind of forget right now.
Does he have some what's his name? The fucking House of Dragon guy.
Oh, a sapphire?
Yeah. Sapphire
Eye. Who is that? Aemon?
Aemon. I'm just gonna Google it. Just tell me what it is.
I'm trying to look where we learn.
And could Balon fuck up Euron? Like, was Balon cooler than Euron?
I mean, Euron left when Balon told him to.
I know. Is that because Balon was a dude? Like, was Balon fucking people up?
I guess in the books we don't know what's under it, but according to Theon, it's a black eye shining with malice.
So it's like an onyx or a dragonstone eye.
That's what I thought it was. I always thought it was an obsidian eye, but maybe that was a theory I saw somewhere that's totally not confirmed.
I'm bought.
Yeah, I don't know if it's real. Some of this might get cut. I'll have to look into it. We'll see for next week.
Wow, you're not prepared at all. Bye.
See you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.